Suffolk Pod Show was produced and managed by podtalk.co.uk. I'm Mark Mason.
And I'm Susanna Hornby. Episode 10. It's the brilliant and majorly talented Afrika Green, professional drummer and author who currently works with the Pet Shop Boys, Becky Hill, drum and bass DJ High Contrast. Affy has toured and worked with some of the biggest names in the music business and is about to tell her all in her much anticipated book, Bright Lights Breakdown. Hailed as an outstanding drummer, here she is, Afrika Green. Hello, Affy. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Well, we're honoured to have you, actually. There's so much we want to talk about, but I think we'll just dive straight in. How did it all start working with the Pet Shop Boys?
Well, it started, basically, I got an email out of the blue from an agent, and it was just in the email just said PSB. And when I opened it, it was asking me if I wanted to do an audition. But I need to rewind a little bit because I actually got in contact with that agent about a year before that on a cruise ship that I was doing. It was a Saga cruise ship, so over 50s. Mm-hmm. We were making our way to Norway. And I was like, this is the worst thing I could possibly do for my career. And a musician on the boat said, you should try reaching out to this agent. He fixes, musicians for different artists. So I just sent him a couple of videos and my CV and said, you don't know who I am, but, perhaps if anything comes up, could you keep me in mind? And he said, yeah, I'll keep it on file. And then it was about a year later, he just randomly emailed me. So, yeah.
And the email just said, come for an interview.
It said, come for an audition.
Right.
And I really had to think about it because I'd had so many knockbacks up until that point. I wasn't sure if I could emotionally handle another no. So it wasn't just a case of, let's, go for it. It was a case of actually, am I ready for what I thought was going to be an inevitable no? So I thought about it and I said to myself, right, I'm gonna go for this, but this will be my last shot at music. If it doesn't work, I was going to study neuroscience at Cambridge.
Right. So a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So that's I wouldn't have gone for that straight away as an alternative, but there you go. Obviously, you followed it up.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I went for it, and a sort of floods of emails came through sort of a week after that, talking about what there was 3 or 4 tunes that we needed to learn. We were also going to have to sing backing vocals as well, and they were just going to they were saying we'll see on the day which ones that you'll have to play. So we had to prepare more than we were actually going to be doing. So I had quite a lot of fun preparing. It was stressful, but I had sort of fallen out of love with drums a bit. It was collecting dust in the corner of my room because I didn't see the point of sort of practicing when there wasn't much to show for it. So it got me back into the swing of things and I enjoyed that. And I was nervous because you got to see who else was actually auditioning as well. There was a lot of big names and I just thought there was pretty much no way I would be considered amongst, these other people. But I thought, I've just got to plough on through. So I drove to London and got called into a room that had Neil and Chris, the Pet Shop Boys. It had the musical director, it had the manager and the choreographer all sitting on a couch. And there was a diagram of this drum kit, which was all electronic, and we had to stand up. We didn't know where any of the sounds were, and he had to quickly show us. I'd put the sounds on this drum kit, this Frankenstein setup, and it picked a song, and you just had to play and sing.
Wow.
In front of these people, it was pretty mad, really.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And I thought, well, I did my best shot. So I waited for that email. They said, you'll hear from us soon. And then I did. And I thought, oh, wow, I did well. But then they said, I saw at the bottom, there'll be a round 2. I hadn't got it. It was just through to the second stage. And then you also got to see who it got whittled down to. So that was quite nerve-wracking because I was like, there's definitely now no way, and I thought to myself, well, I'm proud I've come this far. So I better finish that application to Cambridge. And I was actually playing cricket at the time in Ipswich, and I had stopped off in the Tesco's there to pick up some rotisserie chicken to eat in the car park, and my phone rang and it was the manager. And he said, there won't be a second round of auditions. And I was like, gearing myself up to be like, oh, okay, well, thanks for having me. And he said, because you've been picked. And I was just stunned. I was just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. There was 3 musicians that were picked because they couldn't decide between the 3 of us, so they decided they were going to hire all 3.
Wow.
So yeah.
I mean, I know it was a while ago now, but that's just such a fantastic story. And now, I mean, that was nearly, well, I think it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, you have been full-time drummer for the Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So tell us a bit how you work with them.
Well, we're not involved in the songwriting process. That is between Neil and Chris. So they have a studio, and then they normally send their album or finished studio track to somebody in LA who then will make it sound more ready for a live setting. So it won't be the same as the album version normally.
Right. Okay.
There'll be some sort of extra live elements because obviously they have a live band playing with them. So we need to be doing stuff, and we can cover a lot more. So I think that's quite exciting.
Yeah.
So what happens is that gets sent back to the musical director, and then we get the stems, so what the song is actually made up of, and then we are cutting out the fragments of the tracks that could be bass drums, snare drums, just sounds that we think that we can cover, and then we're placing them onto our instruments, keyboards, electronic drum kits and whatever, and we're discussing amongst ourselves, the 3 of us, what bits we're going to cover each. And that process is called programming, and it takes quite a long time. It's a few weeks to do that.
Right. And then, so you basically put together, I think I'm understanding, like a backtrack as that, and then play live over the top with all the glamorous manoeuvres and tricky, spectacular looking, drumming that you do when you're on stage.
There's so many elements in their songs that the 3 of us wouldn't be able to cover all of it. So some of that is put on what we call playback. So that's being, fed out to the audience through speakers, and we can also hear it in our in-ear monitoring, and it just fills things out. So that's, it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I understand. And unfortunately, this year you were meant to be out and about touring the world with the Greatest Hits tour.
This is correct, but COVID has seen to that. For now, it's just been postponed until next year. So I'm pretty sure it's the same dates, but just knocked back a year.
Yeah, sure. Whereabouts are you travelling?
It's it's pretty much meant to be most of the world, from what I've seen. I mean, there are things being added all the time, but there's definitely an American tour and Europe and the UK. So there's a lot. And we did Asia last time, so that's not off the table. We might
go back and do it again.
It might happen again.
Yeah. Wow. Affy, when did you first know that you were a drummer?
Well, I always tell people that it was the drums that found me. I mean, before I started playing drums, always been passionate about music. I always used to listen to music on my cassette player and then CD player and stuff like that. But I found drums when I was 14 at school. So I was a bit of a loner, and I was walking around the school one lunchtime and managed to find a room that had a drum kit covered up with like an old dust sheet. So I pulled that back, found a mismatched pair of sticks and started to tap away. And I kept going back every lunchtime and just trying to play things off my CD player, like from records that I was hearing. It was by chance.
And you were on your own, and did you feel like a real release doing it?
Yeah, I did it. It felt like it was the first time in my life that I had something that was mine. And also playing those beats, it sounds so Space Cadet like, but playing those beats, it was very much like a mantra, like very mindful. And I had sort of forgotten about anything else that was bothering me. It was like I walked in there with all this emotional baggage, and then I just put it down when I sat at that drum kit. So it's the power of music's really strong. Like, people don't realise, I don't think.
No, therapeutic.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Someone must have heard you, or at some point you decided to take professional lessons.
So I was actually caught in there. That's how the music teacher was in her room that's off of that practice room.
Yeah.
And she heard me and she was like, "You shouldn't be in here, but you actually sound pretty good, so you can stay in here if you like." And she had just hired a drum tutor, and she worked really hard to try and get me a slot, and I worked really hard with my mum, convincing her that this wasn't going to be a fad. And
it's not a fad, is it?
No. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be a fad because, well, I was never a kid that was like that. Like, I didn't have many hobbies and I didn't pick things up then drop them. But I knew it wasn't going to be that way with this because of the feeling it gave me inside, and that I was pretty much obsessed from like day one. You know, it was mine, so I wasn't going to give that up.
No, strong. And the you went to the Academy for Contemporary Music. Right, so that was quite a leap from the age of 14 to how old were you when you went there? 18?
Yeah.
Okay, so you accelerated in 4 years like nothing else.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I I went to the West Suffolk College and studied music there, and it was the first year the course had ever been run. Like, it was a brand new course, music performance. So it had its teething problems, but yeah, I did well there, and I just was sort of getting different drum lessons from other places, like outside of Suffolk as well. Like, I was traveling a lot, self-funding stuff by having a job in a law firm, and like I was always on the go. It was always very much it's just drums and nothing else. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And whilst coming up through the ranks, I mean, let's face it, you're pretty much the number one woman drummer in the world. We're putting you in that position today. I'm sure you are, actually, if you're completely honest. But didn't you find it tough getting through the ranks, being a woman?
Yeah, definitely. I did, actually. It's not like that now. I think at my level, the people I work with, the men I work with, they're my equal and they treat me as such. But when I was younger, especially in college, university level, I was the only girl on my course. Right. And I think I was met with quite a lot of hostility. I think it was probably intimidation. And so I was often left without a band. Like, you'd have to make bands and stuff at college level. And, the guys didn't want to pair up with me or work with me or whatever. And
I hate that.
And then when pubs had live music, they'd have jam sessions. It doesn't happen so much now, but there would often be like older men that would be like, "Are you going to get up and have a little go?" And it was like, that's so patronising. Like, and then I'd play them under the table, and then they'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Because there's
a bit of joy in that, definitely. Now, of course, now if you walk back into those pubs, you can talk about the various artists that you work with. I mean, you work with Becky Hill.
Yeah, she's great.
She's amazing. Yeah,
she is. She's worked really hard to get where she is today, and I've learned a lot from her, actually. So yeah. And then also, I think, is it I mentioned earlier, you work currently with High Contrast? Yes, I do. Again, he's a big inspiration, right? Really, because I first heard of High Contrast when I was at uni. He was sort of my go-to for the drum and bass music that I'm like really into, really pioneering, actually. A friend that showed his music to me, and then when I got the email of asking if I wanted to drum for High Contrast when I was on tour with the Pet Shop Boys, and I laughed. I was like, "Are you for real?" I was like, "The High Contrast," because I think with the Pet Shop Boys, they're obviously older than me. I wasn't born during the 80s, so I had to do my research on the boys and their music and stuff. But High Contrast was like, I knew who he was. I was a fan, so that was completely different. Yeah. How amazing! No, I've always wanted to know this. Aren't you absolutely exhausted after drumming even one drum and bass song? Yeah, that is so true, and I'm so glad you've actually said that and realised, because when you do a gig, you'll have someone from the side of stage bringing you bottles of water. Mine never gets opened. I don't get a chance to sip water and take photos of the crowd. A lot of my colleagues that are on that gig with me, they can stop and take selfies and look, I'm with a huge crowd. Not me. My arms and legs don't stop for the entire duration, which is like an hour of playing things that are 174 BPM and above. It's a massive workout. It is, definitely. I've never seen live drum and bass, but I tell you, if you've heard of a band called Supergrass, their drummer drummed really fast as well, and I actually thought that he was going to faint at the end of every gig that I ever went to. No, it's incredibly fast. The drummer from Block Party got a collapsed lung from the same sort of thing. Yes, from drumming really hard and fast. Yeah.
Shocking. But I can understand why you'd have lots of drummers in a drum and bass setup or a gig, because, you actually do need to rest at some point.
There isn't it. There's just me. There isn't another drummer. It's just me on my own.
Okay. We'll come back to that. I've got another question about that later.
Okay.
So you've also worked with Guy Chambers, and Guy Chambers obviously is very famous for writing a lot of Robbie Williams songs. How did you get involved with him?
Well, when I finished university, the week after, the BBC called my university and asked, did they know any drummers that had sort of overcome some sort of adversity in their lives and music had helped them? And my tutor at the time said, I think I might know someone. I mean, he didn't know anything about me other than that I was a good drummer. So he asked, and I said, yep, I pretty much fit that description.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do like a video audition for that, and I got it. So it was called Goldie's Band by Royal Appointment. So it was back in 2010 on BBC Two. There was 12 musicians, 12 of us, and there was we had mentors. So Goldie, the DJ artist, was one of them. Guy Chambers, Soweto Kintz, the sax player, Miss Dynamite. Yeah, there was quite an all-star lineup, really.
Yeah, how amazing! And you were you were saying you were at college at that point, so you must have been fairly much in awe of them all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't know Guy Chambers' backstory or like what he had done until I was told by some other people, and then I realised that pretty much everything he'd ever written was like a number one or massive hit. So yeah, I had utmost respect from day one. Yeah,
no, not surprised. And what about Goldie? Have you worked with him in any other? Have you played with him?
Yeah, we did. So off the back of that show, we did a couple of things together, gigs together as the whole project, like all 12 musicians. We did some recording together, and then I did some remote drum recording for Goldie on one of his records, I think. Yeah. So I don't know if he ended up using it, but I know that I did the recordings and sent them back. So yeah.
You're listening to Susanna Hornby talking to Afrika Green here on the Suffolk Pod Show.
God, we could carry on, but I think we'd better move on, because I definitely want to talk to you about the group that you're involved with right at the moment here in Bury, moving on completely to BSC 4BL. Can you tell us what that's about?
Okay, so it was set up after the protest in June on Angel Hill after the murder of George Floyd, and it was set up by a lady called Evelyn Polk. She set up the protest. I went down because I'd never been to a protest before, and being a mixed race woman, I have definitely experienced racism in the past, but I've never said anything. I've never voiced any concern. It's just one of these things that it happens to you from a really young age, and you just kind of ignore it, because it happens quite often. So what can you do? If every time you're outraged and you say something, you're going to get exhausted. So I went down to the protest and thought not much was going to happen. Not many people were going to turn up. And I was completely wrong. I mean, everybody was out. It felt like the whole of Bury St Edmunds had joined on Angel Hill. And I actually got to speak in front of everybody and sort of talk about some of those problems that I'd faced. And afterwards, Evelyn put a message out on Facebook, because she had set up a Facebook page, but it wasn't called BSC for BL then. It was just for the protest, just a Facebook page for the protest. And she said she was looking for other people to help run this newly formed group. She said she wanted to do something with it afterwards. So I said, yeah, I'd like to be part of this, but I think we probably need to call it something else other than Black Lives Matter, because that movement has had some negativity associated with some of the things that have been happening in America. And I think if we're going to approach this in Bury St Edmunds and Suffolk, we need to switch our approach. It needs to be slightly different. And so we came up with a name, Bury St Edmunds for Black Lives, and we're about promoting Black lives and ethnic minority lives in Bury St Edmunds and celebrating them and educating people, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
And I understand that you're writing a column?
Yes, we have a monthly column in the Bury Free Press.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had one. Was it this? Yeah, it was. Yeah, this month. And we covered why it's not okay to have blackface and the history of blackface, because there was an incident in Suffolk where a teacher thought it was okay to black up their face for Halloween. And that's not okay. And we, instead of naming and shaming, there's that's not how you deal with things. We just wanted to talk about the history of it and why it's not okay, and how offensive it can actually be. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, so it's educational as well as trying to generally change opinion through your Facebook page, for your article that you're doing. And whatever. Have you had any positive results or feedback from it yet?
Well, definitely. Yesterday we went into the West Suffolk College for Black History Month, and we did a talk to a group of students there, and that was really well received. And we're going to be working with the college on setting up like a diversity group with both students and staff, and looking at how they can be more inclusive in their their educational establishment. And we met Lem Sisse yesterday, he said, well, he's a really well-known poet and writer, and I'm pretty sure he said, when we listened to his speech, that he was a doctor 5 times.
Right.
He has 5 doctorates. That's insane.
Good grief.
I mean, I know, so really, he was really inspirational. So we've taken a lot of great points from him, and we looked at how he would approach things, So it's been very, very, I found so far that Suffolk's been really open to change. Actually, there's been the occasional person that says something, but on the whole, Barry's been very receptive. So yeah,
I think it's changed dramatically over the last 10, 12 years. Seen it happen in front of our own eyes. Basically, the whole dynamic of the town completely different today.
Yeah.
So how do we get involved with that? Where can we go and join or visit to read more? Well,
we have a website that's being launched, and it's at bscforbl.co.uk.
Okay.
Quite straightforward. Facebook's always a easy way to find us. Again, it's the same, BSc for BL.
Okay.
And just, people just can come and contribute. There's no, you can do whatever, really. We try and work on people's strengths. Some people come and say, I'll just do whatever. But it's nice if people come with a sense of, if they've got an area of passion or they feel they have expertise in something, because then we can probably gain more traction that way.
Yeah. Indeed. Now, we're going to talk about the whole idea of putting your memoirs together.
The reason why I wrote a memoir to begin with is, once I had got the Pet Shop Boys gig and started to get a little bit more well known, I'd get a lot of comments from people who'd be like, you're living the dream, or you're really lucky, or things like that. And it felt like when they said it, they would often be counting themselves out of the chance of doing something like that. Like, I wish I could do that. But then you could just see that there was sort of like a sadness, like they could never do it, or I had some sort of special thing that they didn't. And for a while I'd be quite sheepish and sort of like shrug it off and laugh. But actually I realised that I'm doing people a disservice, because they don't know the truth about actually how difficult it was to get where I am, and all the issues I faced along the way, and how I was ready to give up. They don't know that. They just see, Affy's doing all these amazing things. And I think I have a duty of care to people to tell them the truth, and that resilience is something that you really have to have. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do know what you mean.
No,
I agree. And I think, from that, you will inspire so many others to keep going and try not to give up.
And also, I want to do that. And I want people to know that they're not their instrument, or their passion. So once you're really passionate about something and you do it all the time, and then you're trying to do it as a job, so it stops being a hobby and starts being something that you try to make money from. Anytime you don't get somewhere with it, you deem that as a failure of yourself, about yourself, like you're no good. And actually that's quite dangerous. And I didn't realize that was happening to me until quite far on down the line. That we do have a life separate and an identity separate to the passion that we might have. We still count and we still matter, even if that thing that we're trying to push for so hard is not working at that time. Yeah.
Quite powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when are you going to release this book?
I wish I had a definitive date. I mean, right now I'm working on editing with my writing coach and also pitching it to literary agents. So if there's anyone out there,
Yeah, you heard her.
literary agents, shameless plug. But I guess it will depend on, that aspect of things, the agent picking it up and then talks with the publisher. But I'm in good spirits. I think I can do it, and I'm staying positive. So I'll definitely let people know from my website and all my social media platforms.
Great.
When I get any sort of if it gets picked up anywhere along the line. So yeah.
Super. All right, that's good. So and you're always welcome to come back and speak to us again when you're ready about the book. Yeah. That's so exciting. Now, right, we've got some questions for you. Are you sitting comfortably?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Right. What's the best live music experience you've ever had?
So the best live experience I've ever had, I'd say, would be Rock in Rio in Brazil with the Pet Shop Boys. We played in front of 100,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that can be beaten. Right. Okay. Are you ready for your next question?
Yeah.
Okay. Who do you think is or was the best drummer ever in the world?
Well, I've got 3.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them, people won't even know who they are. Because once you're like a session musician, you tend to find like these underground players. So I can name them for you, but I don't think the audience will know. Okay. Damien Schmidt. So he's a French player.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually got to meet him in Paris when we were on tour. And we went to a little bar and we had snails. I just wanted I wanted him to think I was so cool. I ate them all.
Oh.
And then he was being really sweet. And he was like, I've ordered more. And I was like, please, I can't do this. I can't do this.
and you're still good friends, I take it.
He was really cool. I just tried to be too cool and it really backfired.
Oh, that always happens. And who else? Who's the other drummer?
Jojo Mayer. I think he's from Switzerland. He's really cool. He's drum and bass, live drum and bass. His hands are so quick, it's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And then Steve Gadd. So he's like a household name. He's played on everything. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
He's cool.
And now the very last question. Are you ready? This one is from Mark because he particularly wanted to ask you this one. Have you ever dropped your sticks?
Yeah, on the daily. That happens all the time. On a gig, not so much, because you tend to tense up a little bit so you don't drop them. But I always have a stick bag open at the ready so I can just quickly whip another one out. Always, Mark.
Oh yeah, because I can imagine there's one thing dropping them, but the speed you're playing, you could actually hurt someone. It's like a weapon flying that fast.
I could take someone's eye out, definitely.
Right. Thank you, Affy. We're going to leave it there. Can you just give us your website?
It's www.afrikagreen.com.
Lovely. And thank you to you for spending this time with us. We've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Suffolk Pod Show. Find us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, or you can visit our website, podtalk.co.uk. And here's our disclaimer.
The Suffolk Pod Show will not be held responsible for any omissions or errors in its podcast.
The Suffolk Pod Show is produced purely for entertainment purposes. Views and opinions are that of our own or that of our guests.